So what happens when your Kundalini awakens? Because many people have no idea, misunderstand, there's so much misinformation out there. People think, well, it's the releasing of energy traumas in the body and you feel wonderful and free and de-armored, as it were. That's not a Kundalini awakening. A Kundalini awakening is exactly what it says in the ancient texts. It is unlocking an energy that lies dormant at the base of your spine, Shakti energy. Not tantric energy from the sexual organs, not pranic energy that has many points in the body. It is a very specific energy from the root that rises up the spine. That is not a full Kundalini awakening. This is where many people, when you see them talking about, oh, I had a Kundalini awakening experience, this is what they talk about. And then they get to a point where the energy conflicts with their ego. They have a really tough time. That's why people have really bad experiences with this. You have to do, or have to have done previously, lots of shadow work to quash the ego before you really want to raise the Shakti energy, or it's going to create conflicts within you. You're going to have a tough time. But then, that is still not a full Kundalini awakening, because Shakti rises, connects to Shiva consciousness. No male energy, female energy nonsense. Energy is energy. There is no male or female energy. There's electromagnetic energy, electrical and magnetical. Yeah, we are biochemical electromagnets. Makes sense. Just giving you a no-nonsense explanation here. And then so you get to a point that Shakti rises, meets Shiva consciousness. This is where the tricky work begins. And this is why it's very useful, not necessary, but useful to have a guide at this stage. Because then when you are taken to a level of consciousness, everybody gets to a point and they see certain things. Now, these things can vary slightly depending on beliefs, depending on programming, and this is why it gets tricky. But the fundamental things that everybody sees are the same. You just have to guide yourself or be guided through this place. Place, not really the best word for it, but it's an easy word to describe it. So you can then connect to consciousness. First of all, you have to equalize the brain, stimulate the brain. That's what the Shakti energy does. You have to connect higher than your physical body to enter this place, this information. You then have to go through and connect to consciousness. Once you have connected to consciousness, now some people, this can happen in part. Some people are naturally connected to certain parts of these things, and that's why they have psychic abilities, things like this. It doesn't mean to say they've got an awakened Kundalini per se in full, but most likely in some way they're connected in part. So then once you've connected to this consciousness state and you've fully embodied, as I say, embodying divinity, embodying the goddess, embodying the god, whatever you want to call it. Not everyone sees gods and goddesses. As I said, it depends on on your personal programming and belief and how your mind works. But then once you have connected into the level of consciousness, come again what is written in the text, the cities. Now there are many fantastical cities that people talk about, and I'm not saying they don't exist. What I'm saying is it's more likely, especially at the beginning, you're going to have more standardized cities. Psychic abilities, the clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. You can start to understand things that you've never studied and never learned. Your intuition, or we could even call it to the point of, for many, precognitions as well as intuitions start to happen. Now, of course, you can ignore these things, but if you follow them, it's much like you want to buy a new car. You decide on a whatever car it is, a red Mini, because they're not very common cars and you don't see them and you like the car. And you decide on buying this car, and then suddenly everywhere you see these red Minis. Because your subconscious mind gives you what you want. So you want a red Mini, so it shows you lots of red Minis. So if you concentrate and pay attention to these intuitions and the clairs and other abilities, it's going to give you more of them. It's how it works. So very simply said, you raise the Shakti, which in itself isn't an easy thing. There are many people who are very ready to do this, especially people who have done lots of Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong, many different types of energy practices. No, not so much going to yoga class and doing calisthenics. That doesn't really help. It's good for the body. It's good for the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. But as far as energy flow, yeah, not really. Do mantras and things help? Well, they can possibly. Breath work, again, it can possibly, if it's done correctly and you connect to the energy as you're doing it, because it's not about the breath work, it's not about the mantra, it's about the connection to the energy whilst you're doing it. The same can be done with asanas, but it's not taught by many people. And it's not about building hormones, so it's not about building physical energy, building adrenaline and stimulating endorphins. It's not that type of energy. So it is very simply, you raise this energy from the root, from the coccyx, up the spine, opens your awareness, i.e. your brain lights up more. And this has been shown to happen on MRI scans. It's not like the whole brain, but there are lots of different areas that are normally not so active, are active on both sides. You connect to the consciousness, you then have to figure out the path through this consciousness to then receive these states, these clairs, these cities, these psychic abilities, these intuitions, whatever you want to call them. These deep, deep, deep understandings of the universe. This is what a Kundalini awakening is. Is it mystical? Very. Is it profound? Very. Can it test your sanity? Yes, it can. It's not a game. It's not something, oh, well, I'm bored. Let's go and try and awaken our Kundalini today. But then you start to understand things from a non-dualistic perspective, which again, work on dualism needs to be done beforehand. But you start to understand consciousness. You start to understand the relationship between everything. You start to really see how misguided some people are. Unfortunately, it happens. It's their programming. They say not everybody is supposed to reach this in one lifetime. Well, they won't. They're stuck. They have these weird beliefs that, this has to be done by itself. And, well, if you're ready to do it and you do the work, everybody can get there. This isn't, Kundalini doesn't come from yoga, it comes from Tantra. Classical Tantra is where you can find Kundalini spoken about. Tantric energy today, and some of the texts get this wrong because they say it is from the sexual organs, that it rises up the spine. That is the sexual energy rising up the spine. It can, Tantric energy is powerful enough to awaken the Kundalini. It is indeed. So is Prana. It can be done in such a way that that energy feeds in to awaken Shakti. So it's not wrong. It's just misunderstood. And then we get to the point and we just start understanding everything. Is a full Kundalini awakening when your body suddenly becomes invisible and you transmute off to a different place? Well, yeah. If you want to believe that, then how enlightened are you? That's an interesting one. What is enlightenment? I mean, just think of the word enlightenment. To become lighter, to become brighter, less weight, more light. It is the bonding with the light. It is the bonding with the lightness. It is the bonding with consciousness. Now, the funny thing is, when you get to a stage of consciousness and you understand these things, people that are there, if you're there and you meet someone else that is there, you will be able to recognize each other quite quickly, if not immediately. But then other people that have other beliefs and haven't gone through it, they will, because they do not have the ability to understand this, and don't get me wrong, it's not they don't have the ability, because everyone can get there if they put the work in, but because they stop themselves so they don't see the ability, they will see these people who have gone higher as egotistical, because obviously it's a reflection of themselves that they're seeing. And they won't be able to understand this, just as no one can understand this who hasn't been through it. If you've been through it, you get it. This is much like a astral projection. So, I mean, there are big, famous YouTubers out there now that say astral projection is the same as dreaming. Well, the only thing that shows is they've never had an astral projection, and so they want to understand it and don't have the capability of understanding it. An astral projection is an out-of-body experience, the same as we can read about it in many different places. But near-death experiences, they literally left their body. That is an OBE, that is an astral projection, nothing to do with dreaming. But the people who haven't had one can't start to comprehend what it feels like until you have one. And I say this coming from a very personal place, because before I ever had an astral projection, I thought I understood what it was until I had one. And then I'm like, bang, boy, was I wrong. Yeah, everything that everyone says, oh, well, I was seeing things, I was traveling around the world. No, I was actually only remote viewing. I wasn't astral projecting. Remote viewing is a form of astral travel, but it's not an out-of-body experience. Again, something else, highly confused. And so these people who haven't had a Kundalini awakening will see the people who have as being egotistical because it's a reflection of themselves. The people who have had one will just understand that these guys haven't got there yet, and so they don't understand it. It's nothing to do with ego. It's nothing to do with, it's just they simply don't understand it. It's much like, I don't know, I go to Japan and I don't speak Japanese and I'm there and everyone's talking and I start to feel very subconscious because I don't understand the conversation. So these people are being very egotistical because I can't understand them, because I know they can speak English, for example, and they're choosing not to, they're speaking another language, and so they're being egotistical because I can't understand them. Until you learn Japanese. And when you learn Japanese and you're talking with the Japanese in Japan, living your life, however, and someone else comes along, different language, and don't understand, and they're where you were, you can completely understand where they were. Yet if those people don't bother to learn the language, well, you're gonna keep talking in Japanese with the people. You can help them, but they're never going to fit in until they're fluent in the language. Makes sense, right? And they can complain that, oh, but you're being so egotistical, and learn the language. Kundalini awakening is a form of language. It is an information, because language is information. That is what happens in a Kundalini awakening. Now, obviously, exactly where people go, I'm not going to describe that, because if I told people, and I never tell people when I'm training people and working with people through this and guiding them through it, I never tell them what's going to happen before it happens, specifically. Because if I tell them, how do we know that they're seeing what they should see because I told them, and so their imagination is creating it? So I can't tell people exactly what it is. But what's very interesting is after people have had this experience, that's why I have a community group in my training, so people can chat. And so then someone who has newly come through it, they can then go and talk to the other people and say, wow, what did you see? How did you experience it? And then you can have a conversation on the same level. And you can see that you weren't the only one to have experienced these things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with me, training with me in my group. You can go to other places. And when you connect with someone on that deeper level, which, as I said, you can do almost instantly, you can then have a conversation with that person. And you will get to a point that they will, if they are very conscious of the process they went through, you'll be able to talk to them about it as well. And you'll be able to share your experiences as well. Sometimes people go through it and they're not fully conscious of those parts until you bring it up in conversation. They're like, yeah, wow, I never thought about it like that. But yeah, that did happen to me. Wow. And by doing that, and by after having the experience, by not knowing what it is exactly beforehand, and then going and talking to other people who've had the experience, whether they're connected to you or not connected to you, and you understand that everybody has the same thing, that is a form of scientific proof. Now, when I say scientific, I'm saying, well, you test, and if you get the same result, that's science, right? So it's what we're doing. We're going out and we're finding testimonies of different people who have had the same experience, who have gone through an awakening and had the same experience. And therefore it's like, wow. So yeah, everybody has this. That means what I had, I'm on track type of thing. When you go and do this, when you go and train with someone, or you try and do it by yourself, there are many people and say, be very open, just accept anything that comes. Now, yes, you do have to do that. Because if your ego fights it, it's where you get into trouble. Yet I also tell people, hold a slight level of skepticism and go out and test things. Because only that way will you fully understand that it's not just your imagination. That's an interesting way to go about things. If you want to train with me, go to theawakeningenergy.com. Hope you like the video. I hope this clears up in a very easy to understand, very simple way of what goes on in a Kundalini awakening. If I have explained it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. It's just I felt this was necessary because there are so many people that sort of say, oh, I've had a Kundalini awakening experience. And all they had was what we could call a de-armoring experience of energy flow in the body, getting rid of, traumas, held, stuck, blocked energy, and they feel wonderful, they feel light, and they think that is a Kundalini awakening experience when that's just been a pranic activation. They're very different things. They're both great, they're both lovely. It's a good thing to have the pranic activation before Kundalini awakening if you haven't done a lot of Tai Chi, Qigong, Neigong beforehand. Always good to do, but it's not necessarily 100% important. It just means it's going to take you slightly longer because not everybody wants to go and do Qigong for 15 years before they do this. See you in another video.